Hey everybody, welcome back to the Grognards Computer Corner, and we're sitting here. We're going to be taking a look at Avalon Hills, Turning Point Stalingrad. I put the call out. I wanted people to give me input on what game to play next. I put out the call for Turning Point Stalingrad, Patton's Best or Panzerleader 1940, and Turning Point Stalingrad won by just one slim vote, but don't worry, for those of you that voted for Patton's Best and Panzerleader 40, we will be getting to those eventually. I just want to try to figure out what order I was going to do things in. So we're taking a look at Turning Point Stalingrad. This is kind of one of the later games. Avalon Hill in the late 80s, before they were bought out by Hasbro in the early 90s. I think it's probably one of their better games. It's an area, as you can tell just by looking at the map, it's an area movement system. And Avalon Hill didn't do a lot of those. I think Ward C, Victory in the Pacific, those were area, but that was covering naval warfare, and a lot of games use area for naval warfare. Really, the only land battle that I can think of that came out before this, Storm over Arnhem, and I think I want to say Raid on Dieppe, maybe, or maybe that was a point-to-point system. Wasn't a hex system, I don't remember that. Not very many area games out there. There were a few others that were put out after this. This one was done by Don Greenwood, and there's some of you probably have heard the name. Don Greenwood is the man who's infamous for Advanced Squad Leader, among other titles. Advanced Squad Leader happened to be his kind of big work. He also had a huge hand in a lot of the Avalon Hill sports games. College Stratomatic, or no, not Stratomatic. It's been so long since I played any of the Avalon Hill sports games. He had a big hand in the Avalon Hill sports games, plus doing a lot of the original Avalon, or the original Advanced Squad Leader modules. And you would think that this would make this a difficult game, but it's really actually not. It's only about a 5 or 6 on the scale of 1 to 10 of Avalon Hill's difficulty rating. 18-page rulebook, but really, when you get down to it, only about 12 of those are actual rules. It's got 1 page of extending the campaign out, a beginner scenario, some examples of play. So really 12 pages, but of course it's written in, your typical 8 font Avalon Hill style. So there is some information there, but it's not as hard of a game as you would think it would be. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take this first video, and I may merge this with the actual first turn play, or I may not. I just wanted to go over the game for those of you who don't have any exposure to Turning Point Stalingrad, because it uses some a very unique combat system, a very unique turn system. You're not going to find your typical CRTs in this game. There are no CRTs, basically, and we'll be getting into that, into how combat works in a little bit. Wanted to go over this first. One of the things I loved about this game originally is that now the counters, let's go ahead and zoom in. Fortunately, this Vassal module is a very, very faithful reproduction of the board game. And you can't really tell, but the counters in the original game were like 1 inch by 1 inch. And that was huge, almost unheard of, well, up at least until the late 80s, to have such big counters. So that was always nice because I can read them real easy, especially with my old eyesight. I actually was planning on thinking on playing this on the table, but then I realized the camera that I'm using, I'm not real happy with how I've been. My camera setup has been. I don't feel like I'm really catching the action real well. So we're going to use the Vassal module for this, which is just totally fine because, like I said, it's a very faithful reproduction. As you can tell, you've got your German units, you've got your Soviet units. The map is just absolutely friggin' pretty. I mean, this is almost building for building taken from the maps of Stalingrad at the time, and you got all the points. You've got the grain elevator, the downtown ferry landing. You know, you got Mamayev Kyagan here, the oil refinery. Funny little story about the oil refinery. The oil refinery, not really a refinery, it was just kind of these huge holding pens, these massive, huge silos that both the Germans and Soviets thought were empty when the fighting started. The commander of the defense of Stalingrad actually had been forced to fall back and had set up his command center in these tanks. And then an errant shell accidentally set one off, and they weren't all empty. His base, his headquarters, was trapped for like 2 days. They couldn't get out of the inferno that these fires from all these tanks had set off. So a little interesting historical tidbit on that. But then you've got the tennis racket, Red October factory. Everybody, that's famous. The Red Barricades factory, famous. The brickworks, the Dzержinski tractor works. This has got all the big Stalingrad points on. Anybody who studied Stalingrad knows these names. But like I said, absolutely beautiful map in my opinion. Still one of the better pretty maps that I've ever had the pleasure of seeing. So, just to kind of go over things, you got your counters, your standard unit organization here. First number is attack, second number is defense, third number is movement, underlined is mechanized, white circle is motorized. You've got artillery units, you've got the Luftwaffe, the 7th Luftflottille, and you've got the higher unit organizations. I guess this would be the 24th, the 24th, 16th, and then you get down into the Soviet stuff, the 244th, 244th. This is real important in determining your modifiers in combat. Like I said, we'll be getting to that in a little bit. Really nice. You've got each area has, a symbol, be it a circle, be it a square, be it a triangle in some places, for hills. It's got the zone name on it, and the number right underneath it is the terrain effects modifier. So you don't have to go looking to a separate table for the terrain effects modifier. It's right on the board. It's like, all right, it's there. I'm attacking the hospital. My TEM is 2. All right, fine. That's really simple. And you've got these pre-bombardment. Well, I can't really call them pre-bombardment hexes, but they're hexes you have to roll to see rubble is generated from the terror bombing that the Germans did right before the campaign started. And rubble is very important because the Soviets like rubble because it gives them more of a defense. It isn't really a terrain effects modifier, it's just a combat modifier, and it's really hard for vehicles to move into it. Depending on the level of rubble, there's 2 levels of rubble, level 1, level 2. Requires a certain dice roll, and this game runs on 2d6, to roll over or better to enter. So on a level 1, you need a 7 or better. On a level 2, you need a 9 or better. And anytime you hit a hex with artillery or airstrikes, especially an urban hex, you run the risk of rubbling the hex, which the Germans don't want because it slows them down and helps out the Russians. But artillery and airstrikes are really, really powerful. So, but then pre-game, you roll to see if any of these, I think there's 8 hexes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 hexes to see if the bombing beforehand created any rubble. And I'll probably be doing that off camera. Just go ahead and look at, remove all the counters. Okay, let's see if we can find reinforcements. There are 2 ways of playing this game. There's the standard game, which is basically 3 weeks, and each turn is 1 day. And then you've got the advanced or the simulation game. I don't know why they call it the simulation game, but they do, which extends the game by another 6 weeks. Really, Germany really didn't have a chance to take Stalingrad after the first 3 weeks was over. Too many reinforcements were in the area. Russian resolve was there, and that could be debated 1,000 ways. So they've got the standard game, which is 3 weeks, and then the simulation game, which they even say is like, well, it's almost impossible for the Germans to win at this point, but we're putting it in for the people who like the completion. Now, the funny thing is, in the original game, they didn't even give you the counters for the extended game. You actually had to order them. It was like $6 in 1988 to order the counters, but they gave you the reinforcements and the withdrawals. But basically, here's your German reinforcements that you get, and then your air actually changes values, and then at another point, the air changes values again, I believe. Then you've got your withdrawal units. So, the Germans have got some reinforcements that they're going to be getting. Let's take the Soviets, on the other hand. The Soviets get lots of reinforcements. Unfortunately, their reinforcements have got to come across the river, and that brings its own whole headache. Because wherever they land, you have to figure out how many interdiction points that the Germans have built up. And that's built up by holding hills, having artillery observers on hills, holding the crossings, the actual crossings, and then it's a dice roll. And if you've got a low interdiction number, they'll get across. If they got a higher interdiction number, then not so well. Soviets also, their artillery works a little bit different than the Germans. The Germans artillery, they've got observers, and they're basically at the division scale. So, I think there's, four artillery observers, so 4 divisions worth of artillery. The Soviet artillery is broken down in by fronts, and they've got 4 fronts. And you can kind of see these dotted lines. So this artillery here can cover every zone that's, in this side of the dotted line. This front can cover, anything in here. A little bit weaker than German artillery, but can be used all the time. German artillery can kind of be used every turn as counter battery fire, but it can only be used offensively once every 4 days, just because of supplies. They had to husband their ammunition if they wanted to open up a large barrage. They had to stockpile their ammunition for several days. So that's a little interesting rule, that the German artillery is a 9, but can only really be used once every 4 days, whereas Soviet artillery is a 1 and can be used at will pretty much, unless it gets knocked out by counter battery fire. So that's artillery. And okay, so basically here's the turn track starting off on September 13th, and it gives you, all right, on the 14th the Soviets get some reinforcements, the 15th reinforcements, so on down the line. And these are victory point levels. I'm not going to really get into that yet, because I don't think I've never been able to get the Germans to win this one. So, but we'll keep an eye on it anyways. And I know there are probably players out there that scream, "Oh, Germans can win the game." I'm not a clever player. I know this. And then you'll also notice each one of the days has a special color and icon associated with that. That's important. We'll be getting to that in a little bit. Then you have the day track. And I did want to say that the day track was a little bit non sequitur and non-standard. You have the potential of 12 impulses during the day turn. Excuse me. And basically every turn that the Germans do their first combat roll, if the roll dice is equal to or less than the current impulse, then it'll switch over to the night turn. So on the first impulse, there is no chance of the turn ending. On the second impulse, it's possible. The longer the day goes on, the greater the chance of the turn ending. So it's got variable turns on it, which makes it hard to kind of plan forward, because you really don't know when the turn's going to end. And then when the day is over, it flips over to nighttime, and nighttime always starts off on impulse 3. So nights are always shorter. Germans get advantages during the day. Russians get advantages during the night. The only real change to that is on the first day of attack, it goes the full 12 impulses during the day, and then during the nighttime, it also goes the full 12 impulses. And basically an impulse is, each impulse, you can activate an area and do something with that area, be it well, move and attack. Those are your two options. So the more activations you have during the day, the more areas you can initiate attacks and movements from. So that's always a good thing. And so for the first day, to represent the big buildup in the initial strike, they go ahead and let you say, all right, you just, it goes all the way to 12, flip it over in the night, goes all the way to 12 again. Really, the only other thing is normally artillery or air counts as one activation. At the beginning of the game, they let you fire basically your entire load with all your artillery and air as kind of the preparatory softening bombardment. And that represents that's done before the turns even start. That's a special rule for the first turn. That's that. Then you got German removed, Russian removed units. The only other real big thing that you got to keep an eye on is Russian armor replacements. And the Soviets get 1 point every turn that they have the Dzerzhinsky tractor works. As long as they control this, they get 1 point of armor reinforcement every turn. And basically, what they can do with that is they can take a destroyed armor unit and pay those replacement points. So, oops, not that one. So pay those armor replacement points equal to whatever the combat value is, and they get to bring in a new tank at the Dzerzhinsky Tractor Works. It's really about the only way the Soviets get armor back in this game, which is, kind of cool because, you get, I think those are some T-34-76s and BT-7s. I think there's there's a KV running around here someplace. Yeah, the 35th Guards down here, that's a KV. T-34, T-26, T-26. So that's good for the Soviets. Very few charts, very few, like I said, there is no combat results table. So basically, rebel creation, rebel entrance, rebel destruction, interdiction. This is you're counting up interdiction points to see if the Germans can stop or slow or hurt the Soviet reinforcements coming across. And the reinforcements can only come across at nighttime. So that's they didn't try doing it in the day. I don't care if you saw enemy at the gates. They really didn't do it during the daytime very much. Attacks, basically, okay, well, let's go ahead and get into how attacks work. So when you activate an impulse, you choose an area that you want to start off from. Say we want to start off with from here and attack into, say we're going into the Dubrovaya woods. Basically, whatever your highest attack value is, which in our case, let's say if we were taking this entire area, would be the 6. We would get +1 for every unit assisting the attack. So it would be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, now the asterisks mean asterisks can never lead assaults, but they can support an assault. So we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That would be the attack value. Add 2d6. So you roll 2d6. So whatever 2d6 plus the attack value is, that's your attack, or plus the attack combat factors, that's your attack value. Now for defense, you take the highest defense unit in the hex, or in the area, add in any terrain modifiers, and that's plus 2d6, and that's the defensive value. So say if I were to go from here into here, we're looking at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus 2d6 against 3, 4, 5. So I'm already got a +5 advantage over them. Now there are a couple minor modifications to that. Remember how I said, where did it go? Remember how I said that the Germans get advantages in the daytime and Soviets get advantages at night? Yeah, so basically Germans have +1 on defense if they're being attacked at the night. The Russians get a +1. Am I reading that right? So this is the one problem I have with Avalon Hill. They kind of do things in a weird wording way. Okay, defensive value, +1 German night impulse. That's okay. So Germans, it's only on defense if they're being no. It's +1 to the defense if the Germans are attacking at night, +1 to the defense if the Russians are attacking at night. So basically, it's they say +1 for the Germans' defensive value, at nighttime, when, in my opinion, they should say +1 German attack at night. Yeah, that's just my own opinion. And then German impulses, their attacks get worse as the battle goes on. +1 to the Russian defense and +2 to the Russian defense, as it goes on. And then the offensive values: high single attack factor, each extra attacking unit, +1 for each regimental integrity bonus. Regimental integrity is, here we go. Remember, I was mentioning the regimental integrity bonuses. Those really only come into play if you have at least 3 of the same infantry battalions attacking. So right here, this is the 71st. We've got 3 infantry battalions of the 71st. They would get that integrity bonus. The mechanized here do not get that bonus. Well, do Panzer Grenadiers count as infantry? I'm going to have to check that. I'm glad I caught that. So basically, for every 3 infantry battalions of the same regiment, that gets a +1. So that is good for, you want to definitely keep divisional cohesion. And -1 for each different parent organization. Now, so say for later in the game, we had some units of the 24th and the 71st mixed together. If I decided to attack with both of them, there'd be a -1 on my offensive roll, because divisions, usually not used to working together. +1 German day impulse. Germans get an advantage during the daytime. Plus any Russian artillery. If the Russians want to, they can use it for attack or defense. And they can use it as many times as they want. If you'll notice, it starts off with an attack value of 1. But, +1 and -1 on the attack and defense on every combat, it kind of adds up after a while. But every time it's used, you have to roll for counter battery. And that's basically every German artillery unit, whether it's spent or not, whether it's in good order or not, adds 1 to the dice roll. And the aircraft, if the Luftflotte 7 is in action, they add a dice roll of 1 as well. And you roll the dice for counter battery. If it's a 1 or less, then the unit becomes suppressed, and it takes a while for them to come back. There's some rules associated with that. But, they get to fire every turn, and as long as, they keep rolling good and don't get counter battery, they keep throwing little points out there. So basically, you come up with your attack value and defensive value. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we got here. Let's just do a mock combat. So we got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, because it's German attacking during the daytime, versus 5. So I'm up by +6, and we both roll 2d6. And I'm probably going to have to grab a piece of paper to keep track of stuff, so I can jot down, because I'm horrible at remembering stuff like that. So the Germans have an 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 15. And the Soviets will have a 5, 6, 7, 8, 14. It's actually not bad. So you take the difference, and the difference actually determines how many casualty points that you build up. Obviously, the attacker wants to roll really high, and you want the defender to roll really low. So in this case, it was 14. It was 15 attack factors to 14. So that would be 1 casualty point that had to be sustained. And casualty points are chewed up like so in the casualty point table. 1 casualty point, you disrupt 1 fresh unit, which basically means flip it over to its spent side. 1 point to retreat a spent unit. 2 units to eliminate a spent unit. 3 units to eliminate a fresh unit. That's all there is. And the first casualty has to come off of whoever was the highest defender. So in this case, since it was 1 casualty point, that unit would have to be flipped over. Fairly simple. Now, let's take, for example, had the situations been reversed, where had the Germans roll or the Russians rolled a 4, which would have been 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to a 20, the difference would have been 10 points. And so the Soviets would have had to take 10 casualty points, which they don't obviously have there. But if there was also 10 points or more difference in the advantage of the attacker, then it's considered an overrun. The attacker can continue attacking. So had they rolled a 10, would have been 6 points. Those 2 units would have been eliminated. The Germans would have been able to move into there and done an overrun attack and continued moving and attacking, which is actually pretty good. That actually would have been, yeah, they could have even gotten to Hill 1125 on something like that. Now, remember when I mentioned earlier about the little colored icons and the symbiology on the turn track? Whenever a unit is in combat on the defender side and receives a casualty, i.e., is flipped from its normal side to its spent side, it is disrupted for 4 turns. So basically, you look 4 turns out, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on the 7th, it will flip back over to its normal side on the 17th, and so we have to disrupt that with a green. And that's to remind us, that every day we move on to a new color. We remove all the counters. Say everybody who has a blue disruption on them gets removed, and then we'll get flipped back over. Now, when you're disrupted like this, you can't conduct any attacks. So if you're on the defensive, you get hit, you're going to be knocked out for 4 turns. You run back, you hide, it's reorganizing and reforming. Now, the attackers, when that happens, they also get flipped over for doing an attack when their attacks are all done. Say if they would have gotten a breakthrough attack, they would be further down. But since they won the combat, they only suffer a 2 disruption. So we look 2 turns ahead to yellow. So all those guys that get marked with a yellow, and they wouldn't be able to come back until the next yellow turn, which would be the 15th. That's when you'd be able to flip them back over to the normal side. As I was saying, also with the artillery is used. They're automatically knocked out for 4 turns. So if you use them 4 turns down, they'll be hit with a disrupt green. And then on the morning, I really hate the vessel interface sometimes. Excuse me, morning on the 17th, that counter would come off. They'd be able to flip back over, go into normal combat operations. Now, if it's tied, if the dice roll for some reason is tied, then the attacker is spent and they're disrupted for 3 turns. If the defender defeats the attacker, if the defender's value is higher than the attacker's, then the attackers are spent for 4 turns. There is another combat that's basically assault combat. There is another combat that you can do, which is it's called gun combat or ranged combat, where basically you stay in the area you're at and shoot at another space. The only difference is that your disruption, the attacker's disruption, is reduced by 1, and the defender's terrain effect modifier is doubled. So let's go back and take an example of this. If these guys wanted to just do a ranged attack into here, they'd be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 because they're attacking the daytime versus 2, 3, 4 doubled. So that'd be 6. So it's 11 to 6. So, and then when the attack is over, they'd only be flipped over for 1 turn, not the 2 turns. And then of course, if we had the same dice roll we were looking at earlier, with say the Germans rolling the 9 and the Russians rolling the 5, again, it'd be 8 casualty points they'd have to sustain because they had 2 extra points absorbed by the ranged attack. Would have still destroyed them. These guys would be locked. They wouldn't be able to move, but this zone would now be empty for the next impulse that the Germans get, that they'd be able to move into there, say from Hill 133. So I hope that makes sense. The playthrough isn't really going to be how to play. This is just going to be playing. I'm going to shoot through this as fast as I can while giving commentary why I'm doing things. I'm my normal usual banter and bloviating that I do. So don't expect this to be me teaching you the rules. I've kind of gone over a big chunk of the rules, and there's some other stuff I'm probably going to have to look up. Like I said, I'm not sure if mechanized infantry, the Panzer Grenadiers, count as infantry for regimental integrity, but we'll check that. Um, yeah, that's basically it. That's Turning Point Stalingrad. Like I said, very, very pretty map. Kind of a big map too. Covers, it's a good good strategic look, almost with operational movement at the Stalingrad theater. Well, not really theater, the Stalingrad battle. Questions, comments, concern, complaints? Questions, comments, concern, complaints, criticisms. I always forget one of them in the comment section, and I will probably sit down within a few hours and start playing this out, and hopefully be able to cycle through and get a video out every day or every other day, and we'll take it from there. All right, folks. I'll see everybody later.